Jeremiah chapter 40 and 41. Our scripture reading back on Tuesday, I think it was. This is post the third wave of exile. Nebuchadnezzar came in chapter 39 and imprisoned King Zedekiah. Talk about that a little bit more in the sermon, but for now, we're in chapter 40. There's a man named Gedaliah who has been appointed governor of Judah after that third wave of exile, and he's doing pretty well, ruling well, and the people like him. Well, most of them do. Until you get to chapter 40 in verse 14, where Gedaliah receives a warning from a man named Johanan. Johanan says, "Don't you realize that Baalis, the king of the Ammonites, has sent Ishmael, son of Nethaniah, to kill you?" Johanan has an answer for that. In verse 15, "Let me go kill Ishmael first. No one will know about it," which of course is wrong, and murder is wrong. He shouldn't be suggesting that. But here's his reasoning as to why he suggested it. He says in the end of verse 15, "Why should he kill you and allow all of Judah that is gathered around you to scatter and the remnant of Judah to perish?" It's an odd thought, but Gedaliah is the governor of Judah. He's the acting king, and it's only through his leadership and his direction that people have come together to stay in the land at all. He is the hope of Judah, the remnant that's left at this point. And if something catastrophic happens to Gedaliah, then what happens to everyone following him? Well, I guess we find out, because in verse 16, he says that's a lie. Ishmael would never do that. And he invites Ishmael to dinner. That takes you into chapter 41, where Ishmael gets 10 men together and they sit down and have a feast. And in the middle of the feast, Ishmael gets up and betrays Gedaliah, kills him, and then runs away. This is the cause of Israel fearing for their lives in chapters 42 and 43, where they faithlessly decide to go to Egypt instead of staying in Judah because of this political turmoil, the assassination of their governor. Maybe as I'm reading that story, you say, why is he talking about this for the Lord's Supper talk? Or maybe as I'm reading that story, you're starting to hear some similarities to a different dinner that Jesus took part in. When you read the prophecy in Zechariah 13, "Strike the shepherd and the sheep will be scattered," that's awfully reminiscent of Johanan saying to Gedaliah, "If he kills you, all of Judah will run." Because Jesus died and all of his apostles ran away and none of them stayed true to him. Or maybe you have the picture of Gedaliah. He's the hope of Judah. The remnant of Judah will run if you die. And then you have the picture in Luke 24 of the two disciples on the road to Emmaus. They're leaving the city of Jerusalem. Why? Because we had a man we thought was the Messiah, but he just died, so he can't be. We had hoped that he would redeem Israel, and yet he's died. And so they leave. Or maybe it's just the picture of inviting an enemy to eat with you, and a friend turns against you and kills you while you're there at the dinner. That's what Judas does, bringing the Romans in later on. That's what Ishmael does, killing Gedaliah as he sits to eat a meal of peace together. They're awfully similar, and yet there are some striking differences, two primary differences in the story of Jesus. The first one is Jesus did not need a warning that Judas would betray him. Jesus knew perfectly well that Judas was against him. Jesus even says while they're sitting at dinner to Judas, "I know you're going to betray me. What you do, go and do it quickly." And even so, he invites his enemy to eat a meal with him. Jordan read Romans chapter 5 in Bible class earlier today. Even while we were sinners, Christ died for us. He invites his enemies to eat with him and to hopefully share in the meal that he has provided for them. That's an offer that still goes out to us today. Gedaliah didn't know, but Jesus certainly did. And the other thing that's most striking about this story is in chapter 41, Gedaliah dies, and he's still dead. And Gedaliah, the hope perished with him. And so the people run away. And so the people stay away forever because Gedaliah is never coming back. But when Jesus died, yes, his apostles ran. But then 3 days later, he rose from the dead. And his apostles come back together. And then after that, he has 120 people in an upper room that are meeting in his name. And then he ascends into heaven. And after that, the church begins. And then there are 3,000. And then there are 5,000. And then there are more. When you put your hope in some human like Gedaliah, you will always be disappointed, because humans are temporary and humans always run out of time. But we have a hope in Jesus, who is God and not only man, God who lives forever, who is risen never to die again. If you put your hope in Jesus, you cannot be disappointed. And so we have a better dinner to share in, remembering the Son of God. God was not surprised when Jesus was killed. His plans were not upset when Jesus was killed, because that was part of the plan for Jesus to provide hope for everyone, even those who sin against him, even his enemies. So remember those things and the hope we have as we take part in this meal this morning.